Imagine yourself in a silent room. In front of you, a man in a white lab coat gives you a simple order: press a button. Every time you press it, a sound of pain echoes through the thin wall. Screams, pleas, and a growing discomfort fill the air. Yet, calmly, he repeats, "Continue." Would you hesitate? Step back? Or would you move forward, simply because someone in a position of authority instructed you to? What you are about to hear is not just a terrifying story but a window into the darkest side of the human mind. Throughout history, scientists have crossed ethical boundaries in the name of knowledge, and the result? Experiments that revealed dark secrets about our true nature. And the question you must ask yourself now is, would you resist? Or would you become just another piece of this psychological puzzle? The first experiment on this list is known for proving how susceptible we are to blind obedience. In 1961, Stanley Milgram conducted a study to understand how far ordinary people would go in following orders, even if it meant causing pain to others. The setup was simple: a volunteer, a figure of authority, and a button. With each mistake made by a student, in reality, an actor, the volunteer was instructed to administer an electric shock. And with each error, the intensity of the shocks increased. The most disturbing part? Over 65% of participants continued until the end, even as agonizing screams echoed from the other side of the wall. They sweated, trembled, hesitated, but in the end, they obeyed. What the study revealed was both simple and terrifying. Under pressure, most of us are capable of following orders that defy our own morals. Imagine yourself in that position. You're alone, the authority in front of you seems legitimate, and somehow, your hands become complicit in someone else's suffering. Would your conscience be strong enough to resist? Or would you surrender to the voice of authority, convinced that you weren't responsible for what was happening? This experiment forced humanity to confront an uncomfortable truth. Obedience is often valued above morality in structured hierarchies. And even today, echoes of Milgram's findings can be seen in workplaces, political systems, and social movements, where individuals follow orders or groupthink at the expense of their own ethical judgment. Are we truly as free-thinking as we believe, or are we conditioned to obey without question? Now, close your eyes for a moment and imagine being trapped in a confined space, with no escape. The walls close in and time seems to stop. In 1971, Philip Zimbardo decided to create a mock prison within Stanford University. Healthy volunteers were divided into two roles: guards and prisoners. What began as an academic simulation quickly turned into a psychological nightmare. The guards, vested with an illusory sense of power, began to abuse the prisoners, both physically and emotionally. Each day, boundaries were tested. Humiliation became a tool, and pain, a form of entertainment. The most unsettling part? Many of the guards were ordinary people with no history of violence, but the environment, combined with power, transformed them into something they themselves would no longer recognize. The cruelty intensified so much that, in just 6 days, the experiment had to be stopped. What does this reveal about human nature? Perhaps the answer is more uncomfortable than we'd like to admit. The environment can be so powerful that it turns even the kindest people into oppressors. The line between civilization and brutality is, after all, thinner than we like to believe. And if placed in extreme situations, are we really that far from the darkest behaviors we consider unacceptable? Even more chilling is how similar dynamics play out in the real world. History is filled with examples of ordinary individuals who, under oppressive regimes or during times of war, committed unspeakable acts. The Stanford prison experiment reminds us that within each of us lies the potential for both compassion and cruelty, and that context and authority can awaken our darkest instincts. But what if, instead of adults, the victim was a child? In 1920, John B. Watson conducted an experiment that defies any sense of ethics. Known as the Little Albert Study, the objective was simple, at least in theory, to understand how fear could be conditioned. A 9-month-old baby was exposed to a white rat, initially in a harmless manner. However, with each interaction with the animal, a loud and terrifying noise echoed through the room. Imagine the innocent mind of that child, associating a simple animal with inexplicable terror. The result? Albert, who had previously played happily with the rat, began to associate the animal with fear. And it didn't stop there. White, furry objects, and even a Santa Claus mask began to trigger panic in the child. The experiment was cruel, and the most disturbing part is that Albert's true fate was never known. The lesson? Fear can be created, shaped, and manipulated, and sometimes, those who should protect us are the very ones who cause the trauma. More importantly, how many of the fears we carry today were planted in us without us even realizing? Consider how modern media and social pressures manipulate fear in similar ways. Headlines are crafted to instill anxiety, social media algorithms amplify outrage, and corporations play on insecurities to drive consumer behavior. The lessons from little Albert are alive and well in today's society, subtly influencing our decisions and perceptions. Now, imagine a scenario where the mind is not just manipulated but intentionally broken. During the 1950s and 60s, the CIA conducted a secret program known as MKUltra. The objective? To develop mind control and interrogation techniques using hallucinogenic drugs, sensory deprivation, and hypnosis. People were subjected to tests without their consent, plunged into states of mental confusion and intense psychological suffering. Images of individuals losing their grip on reality, their minds shattered into fragments, tell a story that should never have been written. The details of this project remained hidden for years, buried under layers of government secrecy. And even after its revelation, many questions remain unanswered. How many lives were destroyed? What secrets were truly uncovered? And the most unsettling question of all, did the experiments ever really end? Mind manipulation, it seems, may be the darkest and most powerful tool ever created by humanity. How far can the desire for control take those who already hold power? Even today, questions about the extent of psychological warfare persist. Are there still hidden experiments taking place behind closed doors? Is our modern exposure to targeted advertising, data mining, and algorithmic manipulation a new form of psychological control? The implications of MKUltra stretch far beyond history books and conspiracy theories. They force us to question our autonomy in the digital age. And so, we conclude our journey through the darkest corners of the human mind. These experiments are not just stories from the past, they are terrifying reflections of what we are still capable of doing. Each test offers a lesson. Power, fear, and obedience can transform even the most innocent minds into something unrecognizable. The real question that remains is, what would we do if we were in their place? Would we have the courage to resist, or would we simply follow orders, letting our humanity slip away into the shadows of the unknown? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the human psyche, don't forget to leave a like, share this video with someone who would also be intrigued by these dark mysteries, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next videos. Turn on notifications to be the first to explore new enigmas of the human mind.